Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you coming on the show. What you're in LA right now, and I used to live in California a few years ago. I lived in San Diego for about 13, 14 years.
Okay.
And I go back and forth now because I still tour with a reggae band out there. And uh, uh, and since the pandemic, I've just been seeing going back and forth just how much. I mean, even San Diego and going through LA and stuff. I mean, I've been just seeing how crazy things have gotten in regards to like the homelessness and how things are kind of ran a lot differently. I'm in Ohio now, and we haven't worn masks, and no one's had to mandate anything for over a year now. But like you go to California, it's a completely different thing. So I'm just curious on how you've been, what you've been noticing about your environment, and I don't know, maybe how that affects what you do as an artist.
Yeah. So when COVID hit, everything was just shut down,
Hmm.
and going to the grocery store was like a treat, like I think for everybody else
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Um, but during that time, it kind of gave me, I got laid off from one of my jobs because the COVID hit, and then I was on unemployment, and it gave me the time to kind of just like get more quiet, and sit with my projects, which I was blessed to have the income coming in at that time and the ability to do so. But then you speak about the homeless. It's got a little crazy because I literally saw a video my roommate sent me yesterday with the homeless man on fire on Hollywood Boulevard. Just his whole body just on fire. And then Spider-Man on Hollywood Boulevard came over and starts like trying to pat him out with a backpack.
God.
Um,
Oh my God. That's intense.
it's comical, but it's also like, what
No.
is going on? I
Yeah.
think there's another story about this woman who was just walking down Hollywood Boulevard, and a homeless man dumped a bucket of diarrhea on her, and then she died because of it.
Oh my God. Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
things have gotten. That's the thing. Like, driving through and seeing like how it's affected, like where people are camped out. There's whole camps going on. There's the whole overpass situation. It's just completely full, and it's
Mhm.
just gotten so intense out there. I don't know. Can you feel it? I don't know if it's palpable for you, but I mean, like LA for me is always a every time I leave LA, I feel like a certain amount of stress alleviate. Maybe it's because of the traffic and how terrible it is, but it's also I feel like there's an energy out there that's just it's unequivocal. And me being from the Midwest, and you're from the East Coast, like that whole experience going out west for me was just like mind blowing because the energy is crazy. So, I mean, you have to feed off that, considering how you interact with your art and just doing some reading about you and how you can feel intensely of other people's feelings and you sort of can translate that into your art. Is there is there a palpable energy out there that is being expressed through what you're doing, or can you feel it in general, like the chaos and I don't know, it almost feels like a little unhinged out there right now.
Yeah, so when I first moved from Boston to California, the energy is completely different.
Hmm.
There's just a whole different type of person that's out here.
Yeah.
And what I genuinely
Yes.
liked about it was the fact that most people are chasing for something, and that's what I'm doing too. Um,
Yeah.
so I was able to align myself with certain individuals who I related to on a deeper level than I would normally in Boston. Because I feel like in Boston, the vibe is, oh, I'm going to get my 40-hour week job. I'm going to go get my iced coffee, and I'm going to go home after work, and I'm going to sit there and watch these reality dating shows. And I was just like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
I don't belong here. So the energy in LA, it is crazy, and
Mhm.
you have to protect yourself.
Yes.
And when I say protect yourself, it's like you have to align yourself with the correct people because you're going to meet so many people and everybody has different motives. There's like social climbers, there's just people who use you to get to where they want to go. But then you find those genuine people who really align with you and can grow with you. Um, So, and besides the overall work energy, there are times where, like during the election, you could feel the tenseness of the city, and after it was over, it like I felt like like it was all calm, and even COVID, it's like stepping outside. There's just so much like tenseness. It's like everybody reacts in like a horde mentality, especially if they're all glued to the news, you know. And it does affect the individual and the masses.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And when you were working over COVID and going through all these experiences that you and a city as a whole and a world as a whole, a country as a whole, is like, did any of that translate into your work? Did you notice a change or a shift in what you were doing?
Yeah, it was getting back to, like, because it was more of a quiet time for me, you know. So and I didn't have my usual job, so I would wake up in the morning and I would be like, okay, well, what should I do today? Because I can't really do anything. I'm supposed to stay in my house. So I was able to sit down with collage and put on some Netflix show and just sit there for hours and just like really actually focus and take it as a full-time job. So I took that time to really reset and take my craft to the next level. And yes, I did do a few pieces specifically based off of COVID. One specifically was this orange, circular, drippy, like vortex. And when I was just staring at it, I was like, this is the current state of Earth right now. It's mad chaos.
Yeah. No. Are you familiar with Beeple at all? The graphic artist. Watching. First of all, not just Beeple, but like watching musicians and watching visual artists and graphic artists all sort of come out in masses and express themselves was incredible to me. I thought it was really cool to see, like, well, what else are we doing? And I talked to a lot of people over COVID, and there was this sort of split for me talking to people where it's like, on one hand, they're like, I can't do anything but watch TV right now. It's like, I'm not doing anything. And then there were people who were very motivated, and it didn't seem to be like anyone in between. It seemed to be like extremely unmotivated to work and do what they like to do and drink and watch Netflix and whatever it was to get you by in these crazy times. Or it went the other way where it was intensely working, which for me, that's where it was, because I had to transfer my whole life because my life was dependent on live gigs in some aspects. It's like, as an artist, as a creative, somebody that works for themselves, you have your hands in a lot of different pots, and for not for, there's some people out there who are just like, I'm just a composer and that's all I do, but even they are working on different pieces at one time for different projects. So you're constantly working on different things to sort of make ends meet and make things work, financially and mentally, I suppose. But it was a restructuring for me, whereas I had to figure out what do I do now, and that's how the Twitch stream came, and I was able to take my podcast from like this really fun thing that I used to do to like a real business, and like now I get sponsors and it's paid, and it's like so like it was a very transformative thing for me where, like you were saying, it took it to the next level. So it was really amazing to see, artists as a whole sort of either, stay home and drink and do whatever they're doing, or like elevate to the next level, because we didn't have to a rigid schedule to stick to. We could just focus purely on what we were doing.
Especially for you, the music, all the live music is shut down,
Right. Right.
So you had to figure something out. Like,
Exactly.
what else are you going to do? So that's amazing that you're here now and you're doing, you've been able to level yourself up and still do your music, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, well,
And
this is, Twitch, I don't know if you're familiar with Twitch, but Twitch has gaming, which is primarily what they're known for, but they also do like visual artists are on here, music streamers, and all that stuff sort of really blew up on this platform. And so, that whole what do you fill the void with, and how do we switch, like me and my wife work together, playing music together. And now she's doing really well with the music side of Twitch. And I mean, a couple weeks ago, she was playing for like 15,000 people. It's like, what the hell is even happening? You know what I mean? So it's like, it was a complete shift. Unfortunately, Twitch doesn't pay as well as live gigging and going out and working as a, studio and a live gigging musician. But it's there, and it's something that we were able to focus on, and it is another stream of income and another stream of sort of exposure, and it's been really interesting. So I really enjoyed seeing that happen with artists. I really enjoyed seeing people sort of flourish within what they were doing because they had the opportunity to sort of dig into what they do.
Yeah, exactly. You're saying it was either time to like level up or just stay where you were. So some people are honestly just more comfortable just like never changing,
Right.
But the bright side, I guess, of the whole COVID situation is we had those months where we got to sit there and every day wake up and we're like, am I going to change my life for the way that I want to change it, or am I going to stay the same? And I think we both succeeded in the best way possible.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I would love to talk to, like something that sticks out to me when, just doing a little bit of research about you and looking into what you do is this idea of spirituality and how it affects your art and how you incorporate it into your art. Could you go in a little bit about that and kind of explain what you mean by that? Because spirituality is a very broad term. Especially in Southern California, you hear a very spiritual person. But I'm not clowning on you at all.
I'm not quoting right now, so it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I guess growing up, I never really knew that I was able to like feel energy. So it was always confusing to me, and I feel like it translated more into anxiety. And when I started making art, I kind of felt a sense of purpose. And at that same time, I was going through a spiritual awakening, so all these crazy things were happening. And I found the best form of therapy for me.
Like what was happening?
I'm thinking of like in college, I would just be, okay, I think like the veil kind of lifted for me and I wasn't ready for that. And when I say the veil lifted, like all of the limitations that are usually set in people's minds were kind of gone for me. So I'd just be sitting around the table with a bunch of people and then I just know things. And I was just like, whoa, I don't want to know these things. And then it would get confirmed.
Wait, hold on.
Like, well, what's happening right?
Wait. So like almost like reading minds? I'm sorry.
A little bit, yeah.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, and that's like telepathy, And I'm like, I'm not ready for that stuff. I'm just trying to live, I got my own shit.
Right.
And then just like being around certain people, there'd be a very, very tense feeling that I would get. And then through research, I'd understand, okay, well, you're sensing somebody's energy. And I used to think that was weird, and I remember like Tumblr was big. I'd be going into like the deep Tumblr spiritual pages and like trying to figure out like what was actually happening to me. And then one day it just kind of made more sense. And it's like something that a lot of people and almost everybody has the potential to feel. It's just about the limitations they set on themselves and then like the whole detoxification of the body and the mind. And that comes with like a lot of self-help. So I became very familiar with the self-help section of the bookstore. And there's this one book called Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain. And it literally changed my entire life. I had an outer body of experience when I was buying the book in the bookstore. And my little sister was with me. And I just remember her staring at me, just like, what are you doing? I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, and I guess I was just standing there looking at the cashier for like 2 minutes, and she was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "I think we need to go." So I just paid for the book and he just ran out.
Yeah. So what
um,
was that experience
but
like then? When I mean, when you say out of body experience, what were you experiencing when this realm was still here, looking at this shell of a person who is
yeah,
no longer there? Where did you go? What was it that you were experiencing?
so I just got back from a summer trip to Germany that was hosted through my school. So I got to do courses over there. And so it was like just me checking off some courses for my regular semesters. And that experience like really changed my life because I was still super shy and like anxious at that time. So I think going abroad and breaking my norm uh, started to allow me to even like be more receptive of these things because I was pushing myself mentally. Um, and I found this book from online somewhere and it just spoke to me. So we went to this, I pulled up to the bookstore with my sister and I'm in the car and I had this big pimple on my cheek.
Yeah.
And I remember just like looking in the mirror, I was like, damn, I don't want to go into the bookstore because I have this huge pimple. And I was like, whatever. So we went in, I got the book and I remember walking down the bookstore aisle to the checkout. And then all of a sudden, I realized that I'm actually watching myself walk down the bookstore aisle. And I can see that big pimple on my face that I saw in the mirror in the car. And I was like, this is a little strange. And then the next thing I know, I'm just staring at this pink dot on a People magazine. And my sister is standing there next to me, just staring at me. And then she taps me. She's like, what are you doing? I was like, what are you talking about? But basically, I was outside of my body looking at myself by this book. Mm-hmm. And the whole pimple thing was just funny because I was in my car saying I didn't want to go into the store because people are going to see the pimple. But I actually saw my own pimple on my face. And then after reading that book, I understood everything about how I've been feeling, and it described energy perfectly. And there were techniques for protection and meditations. And I've read it probably 5 times, and I listened to the audiobook probably over 20 times. Wow. And I recommend it to everybody.
Creative Visualization, the book.
Yes.
So what are some of the techniques and stuff that you sort of learned in this book that sort of allowed you to hone in? I imagine that once you've sort of discovered these, I don't know, skills, I don't know what you want to call them, that you wanted to sort of hone them in and maybe, sharpen your tools with them because they can be very useful, I assume, unless they're just randomly hitting you and it freaks you out all the time. But I assume that you're like, when you recognize that these abilities that you had, that you wanted to sharpen them, and then creative visualization maybe help, hone that in. So what are some of the things you said? Meditations and some other things. If you could get more specific.
There's this one called the pink bubble technique. So basically and I hope I don't butcher this, but you imagine in your mind something that you want, and you put the thought in your mind, and then you kind of imagine a pink bubble surrounding that thought. And then once it's there, you release it from your head and you visualize it just floating off into the universe. And by doing that, it's basically you're releasing it from you. So if it's meant to come to you, it will come to you. And if it's not meant to come to you, you've still released a thought and it's still out there. Maybe it will manifest tomorrow, or maybe it will come to you in 5 years, or maybe it even won't come to you, Yeah. But it's just like the simple action of putting it out there, saying, this is something that I want. And if it's aligned with you and your life purpose, then it will come to you. So that would be one. And then the other one was like a protection technique. So basically, I believe it's called a white bubble. It's also another bubble. I don't know. Maybe we like bubbles. But
whatever works,
you
baby.
just kind of like armor up for your day.
Yes,
like you ever go somewhere, like let's say you go to a grocery store or something, and you just kind of like, you're just not having it, and you don't really want to deal with anybody. So you just got to protect yourself, right? Yes. So all you do is in the morning or whenever you're about to leave your house, just kind of like stand there, sit there, and just visualize like a white bubble surrounding your entire body. And by you doing this, you're setting that barrier between your energy and other people's energy that might come in. So reading that book and learning those techniques helped me kind of what I was talking about in my college days, like move through life more fluidly without being affected by other people's emotions.
Yeah.
And when I would get and have those intense feelings, that's when I would go to my art.
Yeah.
It would almost be like a release, you know?
Right.
So if I'm feeling a certain emotion, it might be very intense. And that's when I would go. I was living at my parents' house in Boston at that time. And I would just run outside barefooted, grab my spray paint, just start throwing paint at the canvas. And then I'd come to realization again. And I'd be like, damn, that looks pretty cool.
When you, do you, so, you know, like, when you're in the midst of creating and doing, you know, a piece, are you sort of tapping into that side where where Gray, the conscious human being that's before me now, sort of dissipates, and then, or are you very focused and you're like, oh, I gotta get this energy here, and this is where I'm focused? Is there sort of a separation? Do you feel like something else takes over, or where you separate from yourself, or is it something very focused and intent, and you work with intent?
I think it's a little bit of both, you know? And I just recently learned that about myself too. Like what you just said, like, I didn't know I could do that. For these years I've been doing this and I don't know what's going on, but like, last June, it kind of like hit me, you know, something happened, and it kind of like spiraled me out a little bit. And I turned to my art, and I literally shifted my entire skill set. And during that time, I was reacting from like the hurt and the emotions that I was feeling, and then I was expressing it onto the canvas. And I always kind of knew that's what I was doing, but at that same time, that's when it hit me. I was like, oh, so this really is the emotion that's coming from me, instead of me like, yeah, I like to vent to people and, you know, like ask for advice, but the best advice I can give myself is to just interpret my own emotion through paint. And then I look at it and I'm like, you know, that is what I'm feeling right now. But during that time, I pumped out like 8 paintings, and I think it was the best work that I've ever made. And to reach on your second point, yes, I'm interpreting my own emotion. Like this one behind me too, this was based off of it was one of those paintings in that series, you know? So and if you look at a picture of all of them, you can see the growth.
Are they displayed anywhere online in a
series?
Yeah, in a series.
They're in a few of the interviews that I've done.
I see.
I'll send you one after this so you can see.
Oh yeah, no worries.
But like each one has a story. So it's like, it's cool to look at the first one, where it was the natural reaction to the spiraling out, and then the subtle growth from that. So there's like a pattern that I can see, but also can describe to people. Like, so let's say I have a gallery show, like that would be a great show, you know?
Yeah.
But then through that, to touch on your second point, I can also bring the energy to the room. So I did a painting for my friend Sebastian, and he's in DC, you know, and then he was going through some stuff too. And I was like, I'm gonna see what happens here. I'm gonna paint you on this canvas. And I've been thinking about it for a while. I went to pick up the canvas, hung it on the wall, just kind of like waiting for it to happen. And I was like, all right, I got the stuff. And he's like, sweet, send it to me when it's done. Then I FaceTime him 5 minutes later. I was like, bro, look at this crazy shit that just happened. And he was like, did you really just make that? I was like, absolutely. And I was able to like point at different pieces on it and like read what was going on with him emotionally.
Wow.
And it just made sense. So, and that's something I'm starting to focus on now, is like doing energy portraits of people. So if I was to do your energy portrait, I'm sure like we're transferring energy back and forth right now, you know? What would happen is that you could either be here with me, or I just like have you in my mind when I'm going to the store, picking out the canvas, selecting the color palette. And then I would focus on your energy when I'm going in and I'm painting. And I'm training myself to do these things in 20 to 40 minutes.
Wow.
So it's kind of like a little experience for people, you know?
Yeah.
And I like to have them sitting in the room with me so they can really just like watch what's going on, because I just go mental. And I have to, the whole time I'm like battling my ego at this too, because I'm like, this is shit. But then I was like, no, you're actually a really great artist. So keep going, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, you're always battling the mind.
Yeah.
But it's really cool, and the results are always awesome. And the client or the friend who I'm doing this for is always super satisfied. And it makes the paintings more special, you know? It's like you can go to a store and be like, oh, I like this painting of a boat. And I'm like, I'm going to take it home. But like, or you can come over and I could paint your energy, and then you have a representation of you hanging on your wall. You know?
Yeah. That's really cool. Being able to do that, and then you sort of can read it and sort of explain it to people what they're doing, why, and what it's connected, how it's connected to the energy that you're feeling that they're putting off.
Yes.
That's really interesting. That's like I almost feel like it's like, you know, not to disparage what you do or denigrate, but like tea readings, you know, like, you know, like.
Oh yes, it's along the same thing. It's sure, like I don't need to have a painting to like give you advice about life, but it's you know, but I think it's cool how it connected back to, that's how I started learning about myself, you know.
Yeah.
So it's cool for me to learn about myself through my art, but also learn about other people through my art. We used to do these like drawing tables in college, which I want to like make into like big events. And I would just learn so much about people just like sitting there watching them like doodle, you know?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I can't draw. I was like, what do you mean you can't draw? Like, you used to pick up a pen and just like, it's like, you don't need to draw like a Mona Lisa.
Right.
You just need to draw a little stick figure, and then you're on your way.
Yeah, and that's the thing that people get caught up in their own, I guess we call it ego. You know, they get caught up as like, this is not good, so therefore, why would I do this? Why would I pursue it? You know, and a lot of people don't understand that, you know, these things are like skills that, like anything else, you can build off of and keep moving, and they evolve, and it's just a lifelong process.
It is.
You sort of mentioned, you know, speaking on ego and stuff, you know, this idea of imposter syndrome, you know, I'm sure you've heard and probably talked about.
Experience.
Yeah, me too, all the time. It's just, it doesn't stop. Well, it hasn't stopped, but maybe you've found a way to kind of get a handle on it. What are, I mean, because you are a great artist, and I just should mention for our audio listeners that you know, a big part of your art is in the abstract realm. So it's not like a bowl of fruit or like a body or a picture of, you know, a landscape or a Bob Ross special. It's like, you know, very, very abstract looking and drippy. I would just call it drippy. I don't know how it's.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's drippy, colorful, and expressive.
Yeah.
That's how I'll define it.
But the interesting thing is that you can actually paint. You could do the other things. Is that correct? You could could do the bowl of fruit in the real picture with the right shading and do all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, still life, you know, it's harder for me to do.
Okay.
But
maybe that was the wrong example.
I think Mona Lisa. No, I understand what you're saying. But
well,
like,
just having fundamental skills. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the fundamental skills were always hard for me, and, you know, and that's kind of why I was like, oh, I shouldn't go into art. Like, I look back at some of my original drawings, I was like, this is garbage, you know. But again, like the imposter syndrome, you know, and the ego, it will stop you from continuing.
Yes.
And for some reason, I just kind of just didn't care. Like I remember, I think when I first got to college, I would just like stare at the abstract paintings in the hallways. And I'd be like, that is something that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I never thought that I would be able to do it. But then again, like here we are today. I'm selling paintings. We're having this stream right now, talking about art, like learning about myself, learning about other people. But the imposter syndrome does hit, and this didn't happen to me today. But even if I'm doing another interview or something, it's just like, who the hell wants to listen to me talk? Like, who am I?
Yeah.
And especially when I also do music videos, direct and creative direct them. And that's when it really hits me. It's like, okay, how are you now in Los Angeles directing a music video? And you're gonna have these crazy painted mannequins just in the back of a convertible, and you're gonna just show up on set tomorrow and just make a crazy backdrop.
Yeah.
And then I wake up in the morning, I was like, all right, this is what I got to do, and you just got to go do it.
Yeah.
It's you got to push yourself past that, because once you can realize that, I think it's easier to move through it.
Yes, it's practicing facing, I guess, fears in some ways, fears of failure, fears of looking stupid, fears of not being able to come through for the client or whatever it is, all these things that compound. The more that you sort of walk through that door and sort of push those fears to the side, and it's okay that you feel that way. But the more
Yes.
that you sort of move through that and you push through that, at least what I found is that you sort of get used to, and then that's where you sort of build the confidence in yourself where like, okay, I don't know what to expect. I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm a great artist and we'll figure it out when we get there. and there lies the
Yes.
confidence that you sort of can move through those closed doors of anxiety and fear, and just sort of kick that shit down when you need to, because you've done this enough, you've walked through those doors enough, and you've been able to sort of hone in on what you're good at and apply it to whatever situation you might find yourself in.
Yeah, it's so like the creative mind, like you're a musician, so you're obviously a creative individual, the creative mind, I feel like we're blessed, but we're also a little like cursed because we want to do so much stuff, right? And it might be hard to focus sometimes. One of my professors in school, Yoon Soo Lee, she sat there one day and she told me, she's like, you have so many ideas, and that's what the creative mind is, But at the same time, it's amazing to have all those ideas, but you need to just reach up into the cloud, pick one, let's like ground that for a second, and then make it real.
Yeah.
And then you can go back up to your infinite cloud of ideas and just keep pulling them out. But you're not going to get anywhere if you don't actually focus on one thing. Like you can focus on, sure, 2 or 3 things, but you have to allow yourself to really experience those things to help bring them into reality.
Yeah. No, that's great.
I'm sure that's like same with you for like music, no? If you're making I don't know how everybody has different processes for writing lyrics or like beats but like how does that work for you?
Well, that it's in several ways. I'm a multi-instrumentalist. I can produce and engineer and all that stuff. So like like you're saying, there's infinite possibilities, right? Like especially with these new digital, or not new, they're not new at all. Like just the software that's involved with making and recording music and the software where you can like have synthesizers, a billion different synthesizers all in your little box computer. So like, yeah, the possibilities are infinite. And so how do you sort of zone in and hone in on exactly what you want? And yeah, you could just sit there and play with effects and make noises all you want, but what is that? And I mean, that's fine too, right? But like, are you doing are you actually working on your craft, or are you just playing around? And that play is part of it too. So I can't talk too much about people who just sort of go and just start fucking around with noises and stuff. But for me personally, I start with, if I'm making a beat, it always starts with the drums. But if I'm working with like clients, I write music for clients or for different things, there's a description for me, or there's like, hey, like recently I did a song for a gamer who plays NBA 2K. That's all he plays, but he's a big gamer on Twitch, and he was like, I need a beat. I need a song that sounds like the Martin theme. And so what do? You go and I listen to Martin theme, and I'm like, oh, it starts off with these like, punchy horns, and it has that old 90s drum beat and sound. And so you can sort of mine from that, and that's easy for me. I
You
can,
froze on me.
but for me, with the infinite possibilities, it's always, I start with an idea, and I've done all the experimenting, like sort of like the idea of learning sort of the fundamentals of art and painting and drawing and shading and stuff. Like, I've learned that stuff to the point where I can sort of access that as a need, and I'm far enough within my career and my skill set to sort of just draw from that. But for people who are just starting out, I could see where that focusing on one thing at a time and sort of learn it to the best ability, or until you're bored of it, I guess, and then and then move on to another thing. How?
Yeah.
I guess now. To flip that, how do you do it? How do you sort of reach into the pool of infinity to create something, here in this realm of existence?
Yeah, well, I feel like what you're saying is valid. Like, like you kind of grow when you're first starting out. You have to really be conscious of that, especially if you're like scatterbrained or just have too many things going on. But now I have a lot of stuff going on, but I always need to make sure that there's time to focus. Specifically for me, because I have a hard time like focusing. Call it ADHD, whatever you want to call it. Who knows? But to get into my flow, like especially when I'm on my computer gonna be on my computer for like 10 hours, because I do graphic design and video editing and a bunch of other stuff. I've learned that I need to like kind of have a little ritual. So whether that be lighting an incense or taking a walk before I have to come sit down, or just like listening to this like deep focus music and kind of like zoning myself into the situation that I'm about to be in for the next 10 hours, I found that really helps me. But as far as pulling down an idea from the abyss, you just got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing about, contracts and working, art and business, like sometimes it's just like, well, you have a deadline, stupid. You better come up with something.
It's like the man telling you like, oh, I want a beat that sounds like this, or I want a song that sounds like so-and-so. You're like, oh, okay. Well, yes, I can do that for you. Yes, it is creative, Is it what I do for myself? No, but then that's the whole business thing. It's like, am I going to make a logo today? Yeah. Do I necessarily like want to do it? Maybe, maybe not, but I'm going to do it because I'm getting paid for it, and they're hiring me for my creativity and my creative mind, Right. So it's like different ways of using your creative energy. It's like, yes, for your own personal fulfillment, which ideally you can live off of, and then you lend it to other people too. It's like money. It's like it's an energy exchange at the end of the day. It's like, what is your time? What is your energy worth?
Yes. Yeah. That's such a hard thing for artists. I find a lot of times is that they don't know how to, they don't know their worth. And that can come from like a deeper than just like a financial thing, where it's like they don't know their worth because maybe they don't have self-love or self-worth. Sometimes you find a lot in the artist realm, you find a lot of broken people, a lot of people who've experienced some tragedy and trauma, and in turn they've been able to sort of refocus that and repurpose it into something beautiful for everyone to sort of gawk at. But how do you sort of I don't know. I lost track where we were. I'm sorry. What were we just saying?
I think what you're saying is it's like you kind of have to reach the bottom to get to the top.
Yes.
And that's just life, it's a constant up and down. But the key is, especially for creatives, I believe, is when you get to that bottom, you just have to realize that, it might be the worst one yet. But if you can crawl out of it, better yourself, keep pushing, you're going to get to where you're going to go. Like, I was just on a hike before this with my friend Will, who's a musician, and he just moved here from England about a year ago. And we were talking, he's like, the energy in LA is crazy. And I was like, yeah, sort of what we were talking about at the start.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, man, like people come here and with their contracts and everything, and they're like set up right when they get here. But I feel like most of the time when that happens to those people, they get spit out real quick. And it's interesting to even watch myself, but other people that I've surrounded myself with. I've been here for like it'll be 4 years in July.
Oh, cool.
The growth that you go through, if you come here, you hustle every day. It's uncomparable to anything that I'd be able to do in Boston. I can say that with 100% certainty. It's like, yeah, you get rejected 1,000 times, but there's those few people who will look at you and be like, I like you. Like, I'm going to give you a shot. And then all of a sudden you're making music videos and you're painting on a rooftop or doing some crazy shit.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It really is that, if you sort of go out there with, I feel like you should have at least a little bit of your shit together before you head out to like a place like LA or New York City.
You have to be like mentally prepared for it.
For sure.
And it's also like, yeah, you come here, you know what you got to do, and then you keep doing it until you are doing it.
Yeah.
Or you pretend you're doing it until you're doing it. It's all about networking, talking to people, maybe like, oh yeah, writing a proposal you don't think is the right proposal for you, or then you're selling your piece for $2,000 and you're like, damn, I just did that, So it's like, it's half faking until you make it, but also you have to like believe that you are it, and then it will come to you.
And that's hard, and that's kind of going back to what we're saying is like when people are having a hard time with like pricing their work or having worth. What's my time worth? What's my self-worth? It's all interconnected, right? It's like if I don't have any self-worth, like spiritually, or inside, then how can that translate into something else? Now, of course, there's always those people who like hate themselves, and there's self-loathing artists who are creating and selling and doing it fine, but
I wonder how that works.
I don't know, but there has to be at least a little bit of confidence in what they're doing in order to keep going. Some of that isn't. I don't think it's a show per se. I mean, some people are just just depressive people, or live in this horrible world because of chemical imbalances and stuff. So there's some people out there who just can't get past these certain feelings because of what the way they were built, but the outcome is like this wild, art or whatever that they're putting out, and they find success in. So, I don't know how that works, because I just know that my art and my creativity has all correlated with my growth as a human being throughout my entire life. And I know, just from talking to, hundreds of artists that is sort of across the board there. People are like, oh yeah, the more that I grow within, the more, and it sort of works back and forth. It's like, oh, I hit a new level in art, and then you sort of hit a new level in your life and stuff like that. So I don't know, is that how it worked for you as well? Or is that how it works for you?
I'll just use the same example. Yeah, like for example, last June when I was telling you about whatever happened, and then I was like, oh, now I'm making the best art of my entire life. Right. So it's like that real pit shaped me to a new level. And at the same time as when those times get hard, it's also like I try to be grateful for those moments, because it's the light revealing that whatever was going on was not for you. And this is your time to get rid of that and push forward to get to where you're going. And that noise that was holding you back or was messing with you in whatever way it was, you don't need it. It's like a cleanse.
Yeah.
And that's like, I've been studying Kabbalah too. It's, do you know what that is?
I don't.
It's basically, it's an old Jewish tradition. I'm not Jewish, but it's they study it a lot in like spirituality, and it's kind of like teachings about how to shift and actualize things that are happening in your life more, and sort of like flip the perspective. And it's not like it's not like an avoidance of the emotion, because that would be like a passive, like, oh, I'm not going to feel this today. Like, and then, yeah, you're going to feel it in a year or so because you're just repressing that emotion, it's kind of like, it's like looking at a certain situation. I'll use an example. One of my mentors, Sonia Shelton, told me, I was like, I just got a $95 parking ticket. I was just picking up a breakfast burrito and I parked outside of the Beechwood Cafe. And then I come out 3 minutes later, I have a massive ticket. And as I'm learning these techniques about like self-betterment, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna get angry. I'm just gonna like, okay, whatever, it happened. She's like, you know what you say? It's like, I'm so blessed to be able to give back to the Los Angeles community by paying my parking ticket. I was like, that's great, but it's also it's not that great. But sure, I'll just go with it,
Yeah.
So yeah.
No. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's such a useful technique and something that, just, like this idea of sort of just trying to see the positivity in things. It really does matter. And I mean, if you're always focused on all the bad things that happen to you, like why me mentality, then I feel like you're like a magnet for more.
Yeah, and like you just did it today, we your Wi-Fi wasn't working, so we were like, let's just power on, you could have been all upset or whatever, and then we could have just like canceled it, but here we are having a great conversation, and I actually have an idea for you, because we didn't get to go live. I don't know if I'm going to tell you that now or later, but
whatever.
I was thinking if we wanted to actually go live together again, I could paint your energy portrait on the Twitch stream with you sitting right there.
Dude, yes. That would be so
maybe
titties.
Maybe that's why the Wi-Fi went out today, Who knows? And
Dude, that'd be so titties. I'm so into that. We will do that. Let's do that. I'm writing it down so I don't forget.
And then I can get a nice little setup with a high quality camera, and we could just we'll figure it out. I think we'll make the best of the situation.
Yeah, well, exactly. And not to say that I haven't had those moments, because when you're learning to live stream and you're learning all this stuff, there's so much technology involved. There's so much you got to learn. The buy-in is crazy. The barrier of entry is nuts. So it's like, I've had all those meltdowns, I've had all those like, what the fuck moments, because it's technology, man. Computers just will do whatever the fuck they want. All of a sudden it'll flip from a 0 to a 1 whenever it feels like. So it's like, okay, but you've been through it. I've walked through the process. I've done it, and I've done enough work on myself now where it's like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. All I know is that let's just find out what works for now and just keep moving, because otherwise, like you said, cancel, and then I don't have a podcast, and then I don't have content, and then I'm behind on my scheduling, and then I have to figure something else out. By just sort of pausing and not going through with something because you come up with this minor, hiccup, you've sort of created this whole new pathway of more work, or you sort of, you're carving out a pathway of just more negative feelings, because I'm going to be sitting there, in a week trying to put out a podcast because I release on Wednesdays and Fridays. And then Friday comes and I don't have shit, and I'm like digging through my stuff and I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? So like, you're carving out more pathways for more negative thoughts, more negative feelings, more things that you shouldn't have to do, or you didn't have to do, like you're just creating more work for yourself, I suppose.
Exactly.
By not sort of passing through it and just going,
And learning how to flip that perspective is like extremely useful tool. So basically, it's like the way you think about it would be, okay, this fucked up, or this person was really rude to me, or I lost this friend. But then it's like, okay, in Kabbalah they say, well, that's the light showing you. That's the light shining in an area of darkness in your life that needed to be uncovered. So in doing so, and at that being revealed, you'll be able to move forward more fluidly once you dealt with whatever was hiding in that shadow.
Wow. That's fucking deep, man. That's something. No, and like I feel like it relates to. I don't know if you do this, but like part of my meditation, I'll have different mantras for my meditations, or Even as simple as looking in the mirror and be like, "I love you." So I love you. And it's fucking.
I mean, yeah, I
It
used to do
sounds so
that too.
stupid, but
In
it's.
that book, there's a list of them. And when I was like when I was really like deep into like changing my entire perspective, I had sticky notes everywhere in my bedroom. Like, so everywhere I looked, I'd even start to hang them in my parents' like bathroom. They're like, what's going on here? I was like, just like let it sit there, you know, you'll
Yeah.
subconsciously read it all day or unconsciously read it. And, but yeah, the mantras do work.
They do.
It's just a different form of it, you know?
Yes. Yeah, you're recarving pathways in your head that you've been so. I mean, so many people are sitting there in their own heads like hating themselves or being like, "You're so stupid. That was so dumb. Stupid, stupid." You know, like they'll just sit there and eat themselves up from the inside. And I mean that does nothing but create more of those feelings, and then the horrible thing is that they come out at people that you care about or people that you don't know. Like it could just come out on the freeway and you just stick your head out the window and you start screaming like a maniac. Let's end it since we are getting here on an hour or so. So I would just like you to just so we can get a good ending, and I'll edit this all together so it's not all like
Okay.
whatever. But
Yeah.
I thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm sorry we had to cut it short, Gray, but if you could you tell people how they can find you and maybe what you're working on next or what we could be looking out for?
Yeah, so people can follow me on Instagram at Grey Coutts with Grey. And then my art website, which isn't all this is in the link in my bio on Instagram, is greycouttsart.com. And you can see some of my music industry work at greycoutts.com. And yeah, it was awesome talking to you. And what I'm working on next, well, hopefully we're going to be doing a live energy portrait of you on Twitch.
Love
so
to.
that'll be fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, right now I'm like in the beginning stages of starting like my own like business, like production wise and design wise. So it's been consuming a lot of my time. And so that's what I'm doing. And I'm also releasing my first ever couples energy portrait with an actress named Veronica Dash. So we're going to be doing a little video on that. So that will be coming out soon. It's going to be really cool. It's the first time I ever took two people and put them onto one canvas.
Wow. That's really cool. What is your? I know I said we're gonna end, but I'm just curious. What is your production company going to be covering?
Yeah, so basically, I opened my LLC in November of last year, and I'm in the process of booking some new clients. And it's basically just going to be anything that interests me and I can make money off of.
Yeah.
But I've been a graphic designer and art director for quite some time, and I've always been interested in video and video direction. So I'd like the business to mainly revolve around that in whatever form that it comes, from doctors to music videos to brands. It's just a very expressive medium.
Yeah.
And then of course the design, and it's going to house the video, my design, and then my paintings once they start popping off for 10K.
Hell yeah. No doubt. No, I love video too. Video work is really fun. I'm not the greatest, of course, but like I work with a couple companies around town, and I do kind of the freelance thing myself. So that the whole idea, I just started hitting on animation. I just animated my first thing, and it's all just keyframing, so it's nothing special, but it's all
stop motion or.
no keyframing. It's just like in when video editing, I don't know, like you can have things floating across the screen, or something,
Okay.
just that kind of thing. But it's very basic. But it was like I took the concept of South Park and made it into a video. So like on the South Park website, you can create your own version of you, like a South Park image of you. So I did that on their website and then took that image, and then I just took different mouth movements because you can just find them on the internet. And that's what I was at.
I remember doing that when I was younger. Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of like a stop motion type thing, but like with a little bit more
Yeah.
control, and it didn't take as long as like, having to take a picture and then move it and then take a picture and then, like it's very much, I'm working with Final Cut, so everything sort of works together, but it's nuts, man.
That's
Like,
what I used to.
yeah, you know what? I've gotten a lot of shit. A lot of my friends are
Same
like,
here.
it's like, what are you doing? Why aren't you on Premiere? Like, this is ridiculous.
So many buttons in Premiere, okay? Like
Yeah.
Final Cut is like a iMovie on crack, you know? It's like
Exactly.
it's so simple, but you can do so much.
Right, that's exactly right. Because iMovie is where we probably both started on iMovie, right? Like, oh, I can edit on this really easily, and then it's like, oh, look at this, and then it's like, what now? Premiere? No, fuck that. I know what I'm doing on this now. All right, man. Well, I'm so sorry about the unstable internet, which
Yeah,
Zoom
it's
is
fine.
reminding
It's
us.
just harder to grasp.
But hey, man, I really do appreciate your time, and I will let.